Hello and welcome to this Quick Bites webinar. I'm Charlie White and I'm one of the education consultants here at Just Too Easy. Today's webinar is about two of the tools within the JIT toolkit, and they are Pictogram and Chart. So it's going to be a 15-minute tutorial. We're going to start with some data handling for the youngest learners, so foundation stage, using Pictogram. We're going to look at setting up pictograms and charts for your class to complete and to run with themselves. And we're going to look at the content your children maybe could create from scratch by themselves. And then there'll be some time for any questions at the end if there are any. So to start off with, you can find both of these tools from your Launchpad in two different places actually. You can find them if you click on the orange tile for JIT. Which will take you straight to JIT, but along the top you can see the different tools, and we've got the orange one which is Chart and the red one which is Pictogram. Equally, you can go in through J2 Data and you can see Pictogram and Chart on the left, which will both take you straight back into JIT. We'll start off with Pictogram and an activity for foundation stage. When you open it, you get your box in the middle just like you do for anything else in JIT, offering you some templates to start off with. Also some pictures if you wanted a background. It's preset to a blank template, but we're going to start for our first activity using one of these templates, and I'm going to start with the weather template. So when I click on it, it will open and it will be locked into where I can just add the data. But before I start with my activity, I want to edit that a little bit. So I'm going to click on this button in the bottom right hand corner, which will bring back up my toolbar on the left, and it will also bring up the plus and the minus button just above the edit box. This will allow me to add or take away the options for my pictogram. And I want to add an option for my activity for my foundation stage children. I've got 5 different weather types, but I want to add cloudy. So I'm going to click where it says label and I'm going to type that in. Then I want to add in a picture into the box. Now I could paint into that box using the paint tools, or I could click where it says animals, and I've got all of the lovely J2E picture library it will take me straight into. There is a weather category, but it doesn't have the clouds that I'm after. I could look in my pictures, which are anything in my files. I could look at anything that's been shared with me. I could do a safe web search or even take a picture. I've got one in my files, so I'll click on my pictures and I'll choose this cloud here. And as I move my mouse around, it'll move around with me, and you can see that the different boxes at the bottom highlight red. So I want my empty box to highlight red, so that when I click, it will just drop into there and resize nicely. And then that's my template sorted. I'm happy with that for my activity. So I will untick this edit box. And then I can display this on my whiteboard. And what I'm going to do is every morning when my children come in, a bit like children doing foundation stage classes up and down the country, where they talk about the weather, just a bit of a data handling spin on that, where I'm going to get them to record that into the pictogram. So I'll choose a child and ask them what the weather's like, and today is sunny, so they can click to add sunny. At the end of each day, we'll just give that a name. We'll call that our weather. There are 2 options for saving, but at this point I'm going to use this one up here, which is in the orange circle, which will save this as a working document. So tomorrow I can open it back up on the whiteboard and we can add the weather, and a child can do that every day for the next few weeks until we've got a nice amount of data. And then even with our youngest children, we can then start to analyse that data. I can start asking them questions like, what kind of weather have we had the most of in the last 2 weeks? Or how many days has it been sunny on? Check that they understand that these boxes at the bottom are not part of the data. Is there any type of weather that we haven't had yet? And we can really start getting them to understand the beginnings of data handling. When they're ready, when they're able to move on a little bit from that, we might want to create a template for them to fill in themselves. So I'm going to go up here to this green star on the top left to create a new pictogram, and I'm going to use a blank template this time. I'm going to think about a topic on oceans and ocean habitats, and what I've done before this is to create an animation in JIT Animate, which I will show you, which I will show to my children. They can watch several times and they can have a think about counting how many of each type of sea creature they can see. And then I'm going to create a pictogram for them to record that data. So first of all, I'm going to click in these label boxes at the bottom to write the different sea creatures they might find. So there's fish, sharks, there's a whale, some crabs and some jellyfish. And then again, I want to add my pictures in, so I'm going to click here. I'm going to use the J2E pictures now. I'm going to click on this underwater section, grab myself a fish to pop in that box. Now I'm in my underwater section. I can use these arrows here to scroll through the different creatures, and there's my jellyfish and a shark, and I can just click to pop those in. Click on my whale and click in that box and grab my crab and pop them in there. I'm happy with that now for my activity for my children, so I'll just unclick that edit box again. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it Ocean Pictogram, and I'm going to save it as a working document up here, and then I'm going to share that with my children. So I'm going to go into my Launchpad, click on My Files, and there it is. So I can click on this little green eye in the top right hand corner, and I can share it with my class. Well, let's do this. There it is. Okay, I've actually gone one step further than that, and on my Launchpad I've created a folder which has both the pictogram and the animation in it, which I've then shared the folder with my class. Now, if you want to know a bit more about how to do that, all that information is under this help tile here. But if I then show you my demo pupil, Harley can then go on his Launchpad, can click in this folder, he can see the animation and bring that up, he can click on the pictogram and he can record the data. He can say, I saw, I don't know, 5 fish, I saw 3 crabs, and he can keep filling that in until he's completed it. Again, he could save it up here as a working document. He could add a bit of sound if he wanted to analyse it. He could say, there are more fish than any other type of sea creature in this animation. He could also save it in a different way. He could save it as an image up here in the top right hand corner of the pictogram. That becomes really useful because we could print that out and stick it in his book, or we could put it on a display, or even put it on our blog via Webby. So if I click to save that as an image, that will appear in his My Files as just the image, and I can also see that in the student files section of my Files. So that, in a nutshell, is what Pictogram does. So if we go back to my account and move on to Chart, which is a really nice follow-on from Pictogram. Also perfectly useful for your younger students, your Key Stage 1 students. But I'm going to show you some activities for Key Stage 2 students just to prove that, although it's the infant toolkit, it's still really good for the older children as well. Again, it brings up the template box in the middle. We can add a picture to the background if we want to. The toolbar on the side is a little bit different. It shows different kinds of charts that we can have, and it's got ticks in the boxes of the ones that are automatically on. So if we choose a blank template, we can see it's got a table and a block chart. Now, for this project that we're going to do, I'm going to take a topic of flight, and I'm going to give my children a paper aeroplane template and some different materials, and I'm going to ask them to investigate what kind of material makes the best plane. And then I'm going to set them up with a template for a chart that they can put their data into. So I'm not going to change too much because they're a bit older now. I'm going to just pop the headings in the blue. So I'm going to change item to material. I'm going to change number to flight distance in centimetres. And those automatically change on the chart over here. And then I'm going to save that and share it. So I'm going to name it Flights and save that as a working document. Again, I'm going to go to my Files and I'm going to share that with my class. This time I'm not going to bother putting it on the Launchpad because my children are a bit older and they'll be able to find this themselves. So if I go back to my demo pupil, he'll be able to find it in his My Files section. In the shared files part, I've shared it with the whole class, so it'll be in class 1. If I click on flight, there is the chart, and he can start to add in his own data, his information. He could say that he flew a paper plane and it flew for 230 centimetres. He could say he flew a card plane and it flew for 280 centimetres. Maybe a tissue paper plane and that only flew for sort of 25 centimetres. You can see that the numbers on the left automatically change to make them appropriate for the data that Harley's put in. If he wants to change the colours of the bars, he can do that by clicking on the colours in the table and change those if he wants to. And then again, he can add some sound up here if he wanted to discuss what he's found. He could save it as a working document. The ability to save it as an image becomes much more useful at Key Stage 2 because he could take that image once he's saved it and put it into a J2E5 file, for instance, and write a bit more about his investigation, what went well, what didn't go so well, what he found out, and sort of a conclusion. And he can drop that picture in really nicely when he's finished. And then as the children get a bit older, a bit more used to chart, it might be they can do this themselves from scratch, and that I ask my class to come up with their own questions and investigate themselves and collect their data. And in that instance, Harley can just go in from his Launchpad, he can open it up, he can create a blank chart and put in his own data all by himself. And he maybe would investigate what kind of flavour of ice cream was the favourite in the class. So you change that to flavour, add the number of children, and he'll pop his data in. And what's really nice at this point is to have some discussions about which type of chart are best going to represent his data, because a lot of children will want to say, I can show my data with all of these charts. And then we can start to have some discussions with our class about okay, so a line graph actually is best to show data that changes over time. And actually, that's maybe not as appropriate for our flavours of ice cream. And maybe these two are a bit similar, so maybe we don't need both of those. And Harley can then really start to think about which charts best accurately reflect his data. So that just shows how we can take these data handling tools right from our youngest students to our slightly older ones. Again, he can save it, he can analyse it in J2E5 by saving it as an image if he wants to. So that is J2E chart. Does anybody have any questions? That's